If Republicans are leaving Obamacare taxes in, are those across-the-board tax cuts out? Hello, everyone. I'm Neil Cavuto, and think about it. We're on it with Kennedy and Ben Stein and Adam Lashinsky, along with Gary Kalpon. And look who's here, my buddy Joe Piscopo. Charles Payne, Charlie Gasparino are both out this week. All right, so Kennedy, maybe not everything is a sure thing.
No, and it's really interesting because you're the one who's pointed out perhaps there's a correlation between Republicans buckling on getting some of those taxes out of Obamacare, which make it implicitly Obamacare. The fact that you're arbitrarily raising taxes on certain Americans, forcing them to pay for health care. So what's going to happen when we have some of those really tough conversations? And this is where Republicans are hoping for some bipartisan support on tax reform. So any suggestions Democrats make, are they going to completely fold? I don't think this is a good sign. And for the more conservative cost cutters in the Senate, people like Rand Paul and Mike Lee, they have a real issue with the fact that these taxes are left in the legislation.
You know, and I look at this, Ben Stein, I think the fact of the matter is that this might be an alternative to the Affordable Care Act, but it is still a big old, omnibus government program, and that is the history of these things. You might try to shrink it a little bit, but it is still a big old government program.
You are exactly right, and Mr. Reagan, God bless his soul, said there's nothing more difficult to kill than a government program, and this program is not going to be killed, and it is going to grow. I respect Rand Paul, I respect Senator Lee very much, but it is going to grow. Now, as you know, after years and years of us butting heads about this, I am in favor of taxes on the rich. They're called rich for a reason. There are entirely too many of them in my neighborhood. I'd like them to be taxed enough to have to move away. And they have loud parties going on until 1 in the morning, so that's got to stop too. But I think the corporate income tax cut, that has got to go through. That is vital. That is basic economics. It's a sin that's been in there that long. If Mr. Trump cannot get rid of that or else drastically cut it, we are in real trouble. That's vital. It's propelling the economic growth. Please, Mr. Trump, don't give up on that.
I will disagree with you on this rich thing in taxes. I mean, there's a big difference between your rich crowd and the $200,000 crowd that pays a lot of these premium taxes.
No, you're entirely right. Of course.
And they don't party like you guys do. They don't party like you guys do. Well, Adam Lashinsky.
Well, I don't party at all.
No, I admire that. To me, it's a party when Nathan's is open late. But Adam, I'm looking at this and saying, all right, Lashinsky won. What do you think?
Well, that's very kind of you. I'd say that governing is winning. This is extremely encouraging because there are expensive things in this bill. For example, the tens of billions of dollars to fight the opioid crisis costs money. And so, yeah, I remember.
But do we know where that money's going, Adam? When they throw $45 billion at it.
That is such a good question. My God, that's such a good question. Where's that money going?
Yeah, where's it going?
That's such a good question.
Yeah, where is it going?
Is
it going to rehab facilities, methadone clinics?
Presumably, I mean, look.
Adam's getting it. Adam is getting the money.
No. This is a perfect test case or case of a study of this of how we govern. I mean, this is a huge problem. We know that money can go to help people. That's what the federal government is supposed to do. I don't know what the right number is, and I also don't know exactly how to raise the money. But this looks like a plausible way to do it. That's what happened under the last administration, and this is what this Republican Congress is suggesting. I say that's hopeful, Neil.
All right, so Gary Kalpon, the read of the markets, and you're better at this than I am, but is that something is better than nothing. We'll get something. It might not be exactly what we want, but it's better than what we've got. Am I getting the gist of that right? Because by that definition, if the markets are presupposing we're going to get this, then what happens if we don't?
If you think like me, I believe big expectations have been built in since November 9th, and it's by no accident that markets have lifted off. Look, the biggest problem we have here is Republicans are afraid of their own shadow. They are afraid of the words tax cuts for the rich because the left is driving that baby to the hoop. But the bottom line is they shouldn't be worried. In the Senate, the next election, there are 25 Dems up and only 9 Republicans, and a bunch of Dems are going to lose. They're just afraid of elections. And I got to tell you, For me, a libertarian, a conservative that wants to see lower taxes and less spending, we have nobody fighting for causes like me, and that's less government and more money in people's pockets.
Here.
Well, Joe Piscopo, the reality is that the spending wins.
It is. Listen. The red flags are all over this now, and I only go by my wonderful radio audience. You know, they feed me. They tell me they're just not happy. This took 7 years.
Well, maybe it's you.
Maybe they're unhappy with me. Of course. Why would I think about it? So, but why do they take this long to come up with Obamacare? And now the red flags for this tax cut, it's just not going to happen. You know it's not going to happen. This should have all been. You're Italian.
Everything is
I'm
being
Italian.
dialed back.
It should
right?
have been under the radar. You go, you talk, you go have a little espresso. I mean, you have a little, what do you have, like a cannoli?
Meatballs.
Right,
And you go,
absolutely,
let's
right.
settle
There's a
this
reason
out.
it's being dialed back.
No, settle it because now they're going out and they took too long. This tax cut is going to. I hope I'm wrong. It just doesn't look.
I fear you're right on that,
Well,
Kennedy.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many people who said that tax reform, and not just tax cuts, but reforming the entire system,
Right.
and talk about big hopes and dreams. This is a generational tax undertaking that I don't even know if they're going to get to, because so many people have said it is dependent. It is absolutely dependent on the passage of health care. But now what you're seeing, which is very interesting, so many Republicans peeling off and becoming uninvested in this Senate bill because they actually want to see Obamacare fail and tie that to the Democrats instead of having something
But it'll
that
be tied to them.
it won't be tied to them. If they can't agree and Obamacare fails, they can say, nope, Obamacare was poorly
I
designed
think
in the
you're
first
right
place."
that
I
technically
agree
you
with
go
Neil.
to the authors of Obamacare for that if that happens. But ironically, suppose Americans are blaming Republicans for the problems with the law as it stands now, which is weird.
Yeah,
Well, Neil's
because
right about
they've been
that.
told so much for so long that they
Right.
had a plan. They were going to make it better. Democrats screwed it up, but there is a fix. And now people are waiting for the fix, and that's where the trouble is.
Neil, the president teed it up for everybody. President Trump came in, teed it up for everybody. He said, what do you want to do? Paul Ryan said health care. Boom, wrong move. Should not have gone there. You said on your show, I think some folks said on your show, tax cuts should have been first.
Well, it's too late
There
for
is
that.
such a
It is.
bigger.
Go ahead,
There is
Gary.
such a bigger picture. There is such a bigger picture here, and that in the biggest bull market in history is government spending. It never, ever goes down. And whenever they ramp it up, and then somebody just shows up at the door to say, "Wait a minute, you're raising this 10% a year. Let's do it 6% a year." All of a sudden,
Gary-
you hate the poor, you hate the elderly, and you're trying to
Hold on.
screw everybody out of their rights.
But
and
Gary,
it's getting crazy at this point. We can't
excuse
continue
me,
with this trajectory, Adam.
Gary, just for a second, turn
Yes.
that around. We're having the biggest bull market in history while government spending is rampant and has been for our entire lifetimes. Why is that? It's because the economy is strong. The economy
No,
hasn't changed
that's
dramatically
because
in the
central
last
banks
6
have
months.
kept
You know
rates
that.
at zero. Because central
That's
banks
that's
have kept
that's
rates at
certainly
zero
a factor.
and printing zillions of dollars, and also debt and deficits have skyrocketed. Nobody talks about that anymore. $20 trillion of debt does not matter. It's okay. $400 billion a year is spent on the interest at this point in time, going by the
Well,
wayside,
you
not
raised
going
an
towards
interesting.
infrastructure or
No,
anything
Gary,
else.
you did raise an interesting one. I want to raise it with Ben because it actually feeds an argument he's made about, taxing the rich and all this because we can never get spending under control. Now, I don't agree with the former, but I will agree with the latter. Then that what happens here is we automatically equate curtailing the growth in a program like Medicaid, for example, to killing people. And we did this with Medicare. We wanted to slow its growth. That was throwing granny off a cliff. And so I don't know if we'll ever show the resolve to do that. And with the Republicans running the show and having the power to all branches of government, and they're not getting it done, I don't know if we ever will.
I'm not sure we ever will either. And my father, God rest his soul, used to say, if a thing cannot go on forever, it will stop. And so it's got to stop. At some point, we cannot have Medicare eating up and medical costs eating up the entire federal budget and then eating up the entire economy. But I'm sorry to say that is the trajectory we're on, and it's extremely scary. And by the way, I have no problem with tax cuts on middle-class people at all, whatsoever, at all. But the tax cuts on the rich That just doesn't make
Who's
sense.
rich to
I mean,
you?
they're
What's the
called-
level of
Yeah,
rich?
that's a good
What's rich to
question.
Thank you.
Benstein?
And whatever is your income is rich.
Okay,
Okay,
there
can
we
I
go.
just say that very quickly?
Yes.
Tax cuts work. If you go to the 20s, the 60s under JFK, and the 80s under Reagan, tax
Ben
cuts
refuses to see
actually
it.
improve the economy. And here's what happens with rich people. If they have higher tax bills, they practice much greater tax avoidance. If that tax burden is lifted, then they don't have reason anymore, and government receipts actually go up from that. That mechanism has been proved over and over again, and Dr. Stein is certainly smart enough to know that.
Well, I don't know if he's that
I
smart.
do know that's not true.
No, you're a liar, Ben. You're a liar.
But God
liar,
bless
liar.
you. But God bless you.
No, we're cutting your mic. I don't even want to hear from you anymore. All right, when we come back, where are the sanctuary cities for taxpayers? ICE Director Tom Homan wants to know.
It's an offshore safety issue. It's a community safety issue. Enough's enough with sanctuary cities.